Hell is wherever I'm with you by Unicorn Popcorn 14. Summary. Because if Dazai is anything, he is a perseverer. A stupidly incredible one at that. Big deal if he passed out after taking a nasty blow. Mori will patch him up and he'll bounce back in a few days like this is all but a whoops, how silly of me moment. But he realized after he called for backup and took Dazai's pulse like the practice demanded that no, he'd overestimated Dazai's alleged perseverance. Or Dazai refuses to breathe. Chuuya has plenty of say in that matter. Birthday special! Yes, my birthday's in April Fool's. Yes, I share birthday with Nikolai. Not as silly as him though. Here is one of my favorite fics I've written as a treat. Warnings will be provided in the description as well as the first comment, so beware. There are some heavy stuff in this. As you might have probably guessed, angst is my specialty. Sorry not sorry. Also, the wonderful art presented is by LotusPear on Tumblr. Check the endnotes for more details. Hope you enjoy, everyone. Silence. The body beneath him is emitting nothing but silence. Chuuya feels as if the world around him has enveloped in that same deafening silence once he reached that devastating conclusion. The wrist under his ungloved fingers slips. Dazai is dead. Chuuya's wide eyes travel to the half-bandaged face, said gauze blackened and burnt across the edges. His partner's features are almost entirely covered by a layer of red, rendering him unrecognizable. The parted lips open way for crimson that should remain inside, out in an unrelenting flow like a waterfall that had a massacre of thousands in it, never clean. Chuuya is almost fearful to shift his eyes just an inch to the left, barely seeing the subject of his dread in his peripheral. Once he dares carry it out though, and Dazai's mahogany iris stops becoming a blurred haze, it's like the whole battlefield, the whole world, darkened. There is no light, not even a glimmer. This shouldn't be jarring for how typical it is. Dazai's eye has always been like so, lifeless, void, desolate. It is one of the many things Chuuya has always hated about him. Then why does the sight send his nerves scorching just as when he had been tortured a few months ago? Why do his shoulders stiffen and his throat dry so fast he feels he can't breathe? Chuuya should know the answer. Dazai is dead. Right now, he is nothing but a corpse. He doesn't think about it. His body doesn't feel contemporary with the events unfolding. It simply places his hands on top of a still chest and presses, over and over and over again. To an outsider, Chuuya would seem uncaring in a way, poker-faced, with the line of his mouth flat and his eyebrows straight, not too low and not too high. The sheen of sweat covering him can be chalked to how hard he fought in battle, the one he ended in a fell swoop once he noticed his partner's body hurtling faster than his eyes could follow, and how he is poised reveals nothing but composure. Though he bets Koyu would tell just from how blown his pupils are, the hurricane brewing inside him. He bets his friends coming for their aid would notice from the way his hands, one gloved and one bare, tremble ever so slightly as he pushes. He bets the flags would have realized from the lack of verbalizations alone. He hates that Dazai would have known without even trying as well. But Dazai isn't here to make fun of him for it. Dazai was gone the moment the ability-induced explosion bombed just a foot before him, while the power was nullified the moment it touched Dazai's form. The aftershock was real, taking both of them off guard. Chuuya managed to shield himself with his ability, while Dazai had no defense of his own, zipping and crashing against a piece of discarded concrete before either of them could blink. You can imagine Chuuya's silent horror once he took care of the motherfucker responsible and stumbled to his limp partner to find a small fire chowing down the dark fabric Dazai takes to wearing, and him in the same position Chuuya had left him in, the puddle of blood growing. Chuuya took to weak one-sided insults as one did, because if Dazai is anything, he is a perseverer. A stupidly incredible one at that. Big deal if he passed out after taking a nasty blow. Mori will patch him up and he'll bounce back in a few days like this is all but a whoops, how silly of me moment. But he realized after he called for backup and took Dazai's pulse like the practice demanded that no, he'd overestimated Dazai's alleged perseverance. And it settled as a terrifying notion in his gut because Chuuya had wasted so much time. The same notion that prevents him from getting them to a safer place, moving Dazai at all, and just start with the compressions. Because it'll take minutes he can't afford to lose when he'd already spent so much of them fucking around. He redirects his panicking mind, growing blank as he desperately tried not to dwell on it too much, and chooses to take in the less chilling parts of Dazai's disheveled form as a distraction. Anything but his eye. His clothes are half-eaten as a result of the flames that have consumed them. Bits of his hair have similarly crisped, bouncing with each pump Chuuya is forcing onto his stubborn, selfish heart. Greedy it is for death, just as its owner. Chuuya would be damned if he let those pieces of shit get their way so easily. Hollers of anguish are still echoing behind him, an aftermath of Chuuya's mindless rampage, as he robotically positions Dazai's head and presses his lips onto his, tasting blood. He finds he doesn't care about the haunting screams in the slightest, not when there is yet to be a breath drawn by the bastard when he pulls back. Oh, it's fucking on. His stained teeth grit, the first betrayal of emotion on his face. His presses are wilder when he restarts, shifting his glances from his hands tainted in viscous crimson to that emotionless blank face. A crack reverberates beneath his palms, about all the sound he manages to force out of the body under him. It isn't enough. A blazing heat begins to settle in his back, large fires crackling in the wind. Smoke fills his lungs and he blows it right into the still lips, growing cold. Or have they always been cold? Chuuya doesn't dwell on it as he restarts. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Inhale, blow, repeat. The chest rises and falls, but never on its own. Artificial, illusionary, sickening. Chuuya's eyes are surely bloodshot from how vast they are opened, lungs panting as if to compel the other to do the same. How long has it been? How much more time does he have? Chuuya tunes that thought out, blowing into Dazai's lips twice. Breathe. Fucking breathe. Nothing. Fine then. He restarts, his arms growing sore. Something else cracks. The fire increases in size. The screams lessen one by one. Dazai doesn't stir. Chuuya feels light-headed, woozy from the lack of proper breath. The heat is causing his skin to emit newfound layers of sweat, and he wishes to shed his jacket off, but the second he isn't grinding against Dazai's ribs is a second too precious, and he opts to blink the blurriness of his vision away, swallow the swelling in his throat. He doesn't notice how vocal he is with his erratic gasps until something rams his head. It snaps to the side and back. Chuuya's eyes crazed as they lock on the random goon that had barely survived with a metal bat in hand, and regrets doing so immediately because he'd stopped pressing, and how could he stop? He let him win, The fucker, smelling his hesitance like a prey that had gotten its golden chance, dares swing at him again. Chuuya activates his ability in a flash, catching the bat and dragging it down, then swinging his arm directly onto the fucker's face, expression flat and maniacal. Not only does the body hurl a few 10 feet or so, the guy's neck was snapped right off from the get-go. Chuuya exhales once, demented gaze making sure no one else has cockroached during his sloppy and rage-filled massacre, uncaring of the blood seeping over his eye in a trail. Then he almost gags because he's wasting more time, shit, turning around and ready to reposition himself and start. But he is greeted with a sight that makes him pause. There is a hue of red enveloping his partner. What? It flickers away swiftly, like a light bulb past its expiration date, and for a second Chuuya thinks he'd imagined it. But no, once he dazedly activates for the tainted sorrow again and focuses on his target, Dazai does, in fact, get affected by it, his body under Chuuya's will. The redhead sinks, heavy as the ground cracks under him. Though the despair of it is short-lived, because soon an idea forms, one risky and perhaps impossible, but he isn't going to waste time figuring out the success rate of his on-the-spot plan. No, he'll leave that to the smartass when he wakes up. Unsteady but swift, his ungloved fingers unbutton the top of a dirty white shirt, just enough for Dazai's bandaged chest to be bare, to which he then places a hand flat on top of it. His ability rushes from his palms to his partner's body, the heat seeping from him as it cocoons Dazai in the imaginary blanket of For the Tainted Sorrow. The surrealism of it leaves Chuuya stupefied and trembling, as if that had finally solidified the situation, finally gotten it through his thick skull, emphasized it. No longer human is gone. Part of Dazai is gone. Dazai is gone. He chokes and his eyes suddenly well, and he wants to scratch at his throat till his nails stab through. But this isn't the place to fulfill his disturbing fantasies, so instead he concentrates, wills his racing heart to slow down in order to carry out his objective. Chuuya has never tried manipulating the gravity of something he can't fully see, let alone making it beat at a rhythm, though he'd be damned if he let his own inexperience be the death of the two of them. Because, yes, if it's fate for him to lose, then he might as well call for grantors of dark disgrace and drag the bastard back from hell himself. Taking a breath, Chuuya shushes the prickles in his skin, trying to alert him of the looming fire behind. His bare hand cradles right on top of where Dazai's still organ resides, the one whose existence his partner always insisted on denying, claiming he'd never felt it. And isn't it funny how Chuuya is seeking out that very thing Dazai never believed in, begging it to function? His brows furrow, closing his eyes. The pulse in his wrist is a guide for him to match its pounding with the organ he can't see, and he exhales, slowly, calming down. By sheer instinct alone, he finds it and grasps it. Dazai's heart is beating. No, Chuuya is impersonating Dazai's heart at the moment. He chokes on a laugh, wallowed by his success. Automatically, he sneaks a glance through the horrifying eye to find it just as desolate, which brings him down a notch. His smile falters, about to lose his grip on the thing he miraculously got a hold of, and he desperately refocuses. All that's left is for his partner's lungs to function, preferably on their own. Wishful thinking. He isn't sure if he can also compel his lungs to work. Carrying out two complicated actions at once seems impossible, at least not without favoring one over the other. From now on, this all hinges upon Dazai's persistence to live, which is an enormous problem, because this is the same quality Dazai has never possessed an ounce of in his life. This might as well be a dream come true for him, and even without putting that in mind, Dazai is a fucking asshole, probably watching Chuuya right now and reeling over the distress he's causing, smirking as he whines for Chuuya to just give up. You'll never win, idiot hat-rack. The mental image sends him spiraling into determination, gritting his teeth so hard he thinks he feels bits of them cracking. With his hands screwed in place, Chuuya readjusts himself, standing on his knees and giving off the indication that he's either about to pick a fight or punch a hole into something. Instead of acting on either, however, he pinches Dazai's nose with his gloved fingers and blows into the lips twice, progressively aggressive. Silence. 30 rhythmic beats. Again. Nothing. Suicide this, suicide that, Chuuya chides, his voice cracking midst each word, keeping the limp head in place. Was it all a fucking joke? If he had the option to punch the life back into him, Chuuya would have without thinking twice. But his quivering hands are occupied with instilling hope into what is, to anyone else, an irrevocable situation. It might have been 10 minutes already, or 30. Chuuya can't tell, and Chuuya isn't stopping. Come on, you stubborn piece of shit! He punches the ground beside Dazai's head, cracking it. Is this really how you want to die? Dazai's head slacks to the side. Nothing. Nothing. Silence. Nothing. Nothing. The brunette's face is unvaryingly lax, the blood on it parched. His eye is growing darker by the second, something Chuuya didn't know was possible, but he can starkly see it. It terrifies him more than he ever thought it would, clutches his throat and leaves him with an unwavering urge to heave. Dazai's heart is beating, but like all Dazai-related matters, it's nothing but a scam, a lie. And Chuuya's anger drains him dry. His face contorts into some expression, and he chokes upon realizing that it's one of grief, clear in the way his lips are quivering upwards, in the way his eyes stink so hard the dark world around him blurs, in the way he feels his lungs yearning to burst out of his ribcage. He deprives his lips the luxury of shaking by shackling them with his teeth, but they are unrelenting, passing down the tremors to his chin, vowing to never stop until he shatters under the force of a familiar feeling he wished to never bear over anyone else in his life, never imagined he would bear over him. The blacked eye pierces him in judgment and mockery. Chuuya can't let the asshole see him lose it over him like this, but he can't hide his expression with his hands either. He leans forward till his bangs cover his face, heaving a panicked exhale, one between a sob and a wheeze. No part of his body is still. Everything in him burns. The voice he'd been shoving down rears its ugly head in his moment of weakness. Arahabaki is in hysterics, howling curses without fear now that his tamer is out of the picture. Loud, just as condescending, telling him that he failed, reveling in that fact. Chuuya can't handle it. Shut up, shut up, shut up, shut up! He'd never ached to feel the cool rush of his partner's ability more. Chuuya's eyes squeeze. Maybe he really might be. Fuck, no, he can't admit defeat. Not yet, not yet. Chuuya refocuses for the tainted sorrow, the red hue emerging in a more intense saturation. The quiet beats resume and he finds he can't stay upright any longer, leaning forward till his forehead connects with the hand over the bandaged chest, the sharp burnt odor leaving his eyes watering, though not as much as the musky scent that follows his partner around wherever he is, one Chuuya has become familiar with without even realizing. The hiccups of his own chest can't be helped, and he imagines the scene his aiding comrades are about to stumble onto. Chuuya, bowing and already grieving, sending the message that it's over. Dazai is but a lost soul in a nameless mission's battle. Died too soon, died fighting. It leaves the worst taste imaginable in his mouth. Dazai should have dictated how he was going to leave this world he despised so much. That choice shouldn't have been slipped from him in the blink of an eye. No last words, no suicide notes, no claims of how wonderful it's going to be. No one to truly mourn him but Oda. Chuuya has never been in a feud against a heart other than his own, and even then, he despises the one he's puppeteering for how fast it gave up, in less than a second. What right did it have to do so? Come on, He whispers hoarsely, "Wake up, nullify it, make me feel human again." "You..." He weakly thumps the static chest, Adam's apple bobbing as he persistently swallows. He can't cry. He always reserves those for funerals, and this isn't one. This wouldn't be. "I hate you," he thumps again. "Fuck you." And again, and again, and again, till exhaustion leadens his limbs and both of them stay flat on a layer of bandages, as does the tip of his nose. The contact tingles less than usual. The lack of nullification, the lack of the uniqueness of the touch, making it inexistent, hollow, defective. He was always ready to say goodbye. He isn't ready to say goodbye. The world around him burns, hot and scorching. He feels rooted in place, not even an inch of him able to stir. What are you doing? Is he going to stay like this forever? Is he not willing to admit defeat? Or is he waiting for the fire to reach them both, leave them unrecognizable bodies of ash? No, but one more time, just one. He pleads, promises, regardless of the outcome, he's getting on his feet afterwards. His incredibly shaky, definitely will give upon him feet. Having gotten used to the rhythm enough to carry it out without intense focus, Chuuya gently readjusts Dazai's head with both hands this time, and, keeping his eyes on a leash, never letting them go astray, he pinches his nose and connects their lips. Breathe, exhale. 1. He pulls back for a reason he can't place, although knowing he needs to. This is it. This is the bastard's last chance. His eyes study the flat expression underneath him. Chuuya realizes he wasn't seeing his partner at all. All he's staring at is a half-veiled, bloodied version of his face. What a diabolical joke. With his ability, he forces the dry blood particles to peel off. They break out and float, and Chuuya, aching for something to latch on, takes Dazai's hand into his and squeezes, right before diving in again. Breathe, exhale. 2. Time slows down as he pulls back. A stream of blood follows his own lips as they exit Dazai's mouth, his ability manipulating it without realizing. Chuuya's head is now surrounded by floating red specks, some solid and some liquid, but all he's set on is Dazai's flat expression, now without crimson veils, clean. And his breath leaves him. Nothing. Silence. Piercing. Desolate. Chuuya's heart picks up at an insane speed, spiking in dread. This can't be. It's not. No. Dazai's organ catches up. Nothing but a mimicker. The droplets of blood disperse from Dazai's lips at a quicker pace, the redhead panicking too much to stop any of the repeated actions he's been making. The shaking returns tenfold, and his pupils shift swiftly, blurring at the edges. His hair is gripped tight, an anchor sinking him further. Arahabaki screams something incomprehensible. Fuck, 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 fuck! Chuuya needs to slow down. He needs to ground himself. He needs to get up. No, fuck! Chuuya thinks his own lungs are going to fail him. Chuuya thinks it's going to be a blessing. The hand he's been holding breaks. The world stops spinning, screeching to a halt. The redhead's neck almost cracks, turning to the sound that certainly didn't come from him. Just as the last droplet of blood exits, it happens. Chuuya watches, agape, as Dazai's body writhes under him, his eyes closed as his face contours into a scowl and his chest quakes, heaves. No, the world doesn't only stop, the world turns blue. Blue meets the fire. Blue that is no longer human, exploding the instant Dazai moved on his own, in rings which only appear when his partner allows it. Halos of light that infect Chuuya from his bare fingertips where he holds Dazai's skin, to his palm, to his arm, to his entire body. Arahabaki shuts up like his mute button's been pressed. The floating blood sprinkles down on both of them, but a drizzle. Then Dazai hacks and gasps and his eye rolls as he trembles, and Chuuya is stunned, can't believe it. His face goes through about 30 emotions in a millisecond, varying from joy and disgust to the remnants of sorrow and anger. He shifts closer but draws away, just hiccuping in both a laugh and a sob. Dazai has yet to open his eyes, and Chuuya is terrified of what he might find. No part of his body is still. Everything in him burns. But this time, he can cup the side of Dazai's face and feel the uniqueness of the touch, replacing the fiery crimson with white snow. Suddenly, his mind catches up faster than he accounts for, and Chuuya flounders. He snatches Dazai, quite literally, so he's seated on his lap, gloved hand interlocking with brown hair to quickly embrace his head beside his own, while his other arm wraps around his back to stabilize it. Blue eyes are wide as they stare ahead, hyperventilating in what can only be described as relief. Dazai breathes into his ear, loud and gurgled and aching, and Chuuya simply burrows his nose further into his neck, forcing his eyes closed. Nothing is making sense, but nothing has ever felt righter. Dazai then whines, and the faintest hints of his voice sends Chuuya crumbling. You damn! His throat emits a hoarse wheeze, failing him, and really, there is no appropriate insult for the situation. His brain is too jumbled to pick one. He makes up for that by gripping Dazai's hair tighter, along with his back, greedy for contact, starving for it. It makes his head wound sear along with the various other injuries his adrenaline kept him from experiencing, but he pays them little mind. Dazai's stuttering chest against his own is a soothing pressure. The musky smell is comforting, and the darkness enveloping his vision is safe. Right. Chuuya almost wishes to stay like this forever. But Dazai is still dying, and they're still in the middle of a conflagration that Chuuya has the vaguest idea of how it's currently unfolding. Slowly, like his face is merged with the neck it's pressed against, Chuuya wills himself to tear apart from it, feeling imaginary blisters as a result. His head turns, barely enough for his eyes to get a glimpse of the world he shut off, which said world communicates its resentment by letting the brightness hit him full on, making him flinch before his blurry pupils blink and adjust. The sight widens his eyes. Hellish blazes have eaten away everything in their path, and now are right behind him. A destructive wall of pure heat looms over the two of them, half a mile away, crawling towards them like a beast with its claws bared. Chuuya's heart freezes in contrast, chest flaring as he sucks in a breath, the inhalation itself threatening to melt his lungs off. Fuck! He scrambles, in his haste tries to float, but quickly realizes how futile that is. Chuuya shakes, pulling the body in his arms tighter, and props one knee up in order to bolt. Dazai wheezes at the maneuvering, but Chuuya is in no position to be considerate, aiming to get up on his feet. His incredibly shaky, definitely will give upon him feet. Chuuya hates that he knows his body's limitations pretty well, because now that the adrenaline had considered to have done its job, it refuses to rush in his system as strongly as before, allowing every soreness he'd brushed past to bite him in the ass. The burn in his side sears, the stab in his leg bleeds, the wound on his head pulses. The lack of Arahabaki's presence doesn't help either. So, naturally, he takes a number of 5 quick steps before he falls. Dazai trembles, coughing near his ear. Chuuya, resolute as ever, refuses to go down without a fight. He only hopes his body gets on with the program soon, because otherwise they're done for. Before he can prop his trembling knee up a second time, a tug stops him. Chuuya hangs his head to find Dazai's singed fingers curled around his collar. He looks aside at the head of brown as he tries to stand back up. A bit slower at that, to his disdain. "What is it?" he asks, because for Dazai to go out of his way to will his half-dead body to move, to put any effort in anything in general, can only mean that he's trying to communicate something important. Dazai tenses at the jostling, though refuses to let go, instead pulling his collar down. "Are you fucking nuts?" Chuuya chokes, looking back at the flames, looming, never stopping. He's getting up on his feet again, regardless of Dazai's demand. "This isn't the time for your freaky suicidal fantasies, you." Dazai doesn't relent, tugging him downward again and again. Okay, he's serious. He's serious and crazy. Chuuya pauses before he can help it, trying to make sense of what Dazai is getting at as quickly as his panicking mind can allow it. The heat feels so intense on his back that it deems an impossible task, because hell is coming for them and his idiot partner is asking him to accept it. No, embrace it. His eyes widen. Wait. Dazai, in his position, has been staring at the fire the entire time and didn't convey any signs of panic. He didn't alert Chuuya of it either. So perhaps... Chuuya turns to the head of brown, then to the beast chasing the two of them, lowering himself slowly as he speaks. "You really think it's an ability?" That would mean that one of their opponents is still alive somehow, which Chuuya isn't entirely on board with. Then again... Dazai responds by gruelingly draping his arm over the redhead's shoulder, and when Chuuya turns to it, he sees the index finger pointing towards the fire, as if challenging but an insignificant being, not a literal force of nature. "You better be right about this, bastard." Chuuya sinks to his knees, growling lowly. His pulse is loud. Both of theirs are, reverberating in responses to one another, a confidential conversation taking place. He grips a handful of brown locks in emphasis, hand trembling in a force Dazai wouldn't feel. "Seriously, if it ends here with a failed plan on your account of all things, I'll make sure to kill you before the fire does." He doesn't need to look in order to see the shit-eating grin Dazai is most definitely wearing right now, no matter how small. The quiet huff that follows confirms as much. Chuuya breathes and complies. He positions Dazai's stretched arm a bit further, keeping his head in place. The acrid odor of smoke burns his nostrils, waters his eyes, and he can feel the heat in his throat, leaving his mouth impossibly dry. Dazai himself chokes and suppresses his coughs, his shallow breathing growing quicker in an unseen effort to breathe, to live. The bared claws of the fire raise, and Chuuya doesn't look back. He refuses to. If there is but the slightest chance that Dazai is wrong, Chuuya wouldn't leave this world putting an ounce of doubt in him. No, he'll rid himself of the hesitation gnawing at his insides completely, resign himself to stay, and believe in his partner, the one he'd placed his life in his hands time and time again, till the very end. And so he tries to calm his racing heart as best as he can, breathe through his melting lungs. No matter how much one would like to appear confident in the face of the Grim Reaper, instincts are wired in him to dread him, pale before him. Chuuya believes Dazai's instincts have long been numbed, but his are certainly still very much present, rising the hair on his neck and arms in unwelcome goosebumps. He thinks his back is already on fire with how hellish it feels, his skin searing and his breath shallowing and his mind screaming at him to just go, run, go, go, go. Dazai's beating heart tells his own that it's going to be okay. Chuuya tightens his hold instead, closes his eyes. He yelps at the heat he can't silently endure anymore, as strangled gasp forced out of him. The claw swings with a blazing whoosh and never land. It takes a beat, one that feels like hours of torture, far worse than he'd ever withstood. But then, the magical chime of his partner's ability reverberates in his ears, fills all his senses. Chuuya gasps, then his head whips back, not allowing himself to miss witnessing his partner's ability in action. No longer human turns the tables on the beast 5 times their size with a mere touch, as it is the one that eats away at the conflagration in a glow of blue and white, rushing from the point of contact in a circular hue growing wider, till the scorching, terrifying monster is but specks of glitter dancing through the smog, beautiful in a way it hasn't ever been. The cyan rings that have formed explode in particles, leaving a gust of cold wind in its wake. Chuuya's hair flutters aside, covering half of his face, his eyes glistening in a stronger ager in response to the twinkles befalling, as he stares and unapologetically admires. Whoa! The single, frenzied chuckle that emits out of him can't be helped, unprecedented relief leaving his body sagging, and while smoke has remained, the cooler atmosphere feels like heaven on earth against his skin, contradicting the hell it had just replaced. Dazai's arm limps, fingertips brushing the back of Chuuya's jacket, where it's still hot to the touch. The older takes his wrist with peculiar gentleness, maneuvering it so it rests on his partner's torso instead. Can't believe your lucky guess saved our asses. He lies, suppressing his relieved tone as best as he can. Dazai hums in response, sounding beyond exhausted. Chuuya finally finds the courage to tear their proximity, to rip the vein connecting their beating organs in two, the one that is acting as a string telephone between them. Lowering his partner so his head is against his heart, Chuuya sees him for the first time, takes in everything. His puffing chest, his half-buttoned shirt, his still bleeding wounds, his clean, pale face, and his abilities areola that envelopes Chuuya as well, as payback for his audacity to puppeteer its owner by for the tainted sorrow. Then their eyes meet, and Chuuya is left in fragments. Dazai's visible eye stares at him under the curtain of his bangs. Mahogany, acute, glazed, but alive. The significance is blinding. Chuuya inhales, and this time, his breath doesn't threaten to grill his innards for a feast, nor leaves him with an unrelenting urge to wail. He can only wish he could have experienced this strange, pressuring alleviation with 5 particular people he'd lost too soon, the ones he endlessly misses every day. He thinks his eyes well, and he hopes the know-it-all isn't lucid enough to notice. Though that can be up to debate, because Dazai is gleaming at him tiredly, with a look that can only translate to, "I told you so." Insufferable smartass. Chuuya groans while brushing the crisped locks away from the brown eye in order to see it better, taking as much of the relieving sight as he can. It's the closest thing to a compliment Chuuya can provide, and Dazai seems to deem it good enough. Because he attempts to shift his body, see what parts of it he can move. Chuuya would hold him down if it weren't for the fact that Dazai would writhe even more like the fucking mackerel he is. So he watches him assess his condition himself, no matter how much pain he knows that would bring him. It's a classic sight of Dazai trying to appear unbothered by the pain he oh so loathes, until something else appears on his face, staring down at one of his hands. Chuuya realizes its confusion. That was my when you wake up gift. Neat, huh? He sneers half-heartedly, alluding to the broken fingers, and partly his broken ribs. Dazai pouts at him, unimpressed, though his expression morphs into confusion once again. The redhead takes a second before the migraine in his head acts as a hint. He wipes the dried blood on his face absently. "Oh, please, look who's talking." Chuuya says in lieu of an explanation. No way is he gonna admit getting swung at by a bat of all things. Dazai wouldn't let him live it down. It looks like Dazai can tell though, with his attempt to arch a brow. He always does when it comes to embarrassing Chuuya. Chuuya ignores the knowing gaze and goes from brushing the locks to placing his ungloved fingers on top of Dazai's buried, beating, and allegedly inexistent heart. There are sounds around them, though not the howls of anguish that have long since died. Chuuya figures that backup has finally arrived, albeit overdue. At least Dazai will be handled in a way that wouldn't kill him a second time. Said waste of bandage's gaze morphs into a discreet wince. Chuuya huffs fondly, though doesn't show it on his face, deciding to take the conversation as to distract the other. So, how did the journey to hell and back feel like? It surprises him when something glints in the other's eye, more so when he does open his mouth to answer. He croaks, throat dispelling crimson as he tries. Chuuya shakes his head, tone flat. Shut up, don't answer that. I was being rhetorical. Dazai doesn't, of course, making his misery Chuuya's problem. It takes about 2 tries for him to convey. Amazing. The suicidal bastard sends him a toothy smile, pierces him with it, which Chuuya retaliates with a frown, just as sharp. It is a mockery of his efforts, of his success, of the tears Dazai must know he'd shed. Though, when Chuuya stares hard enough, he finds something else under the mask of fucked up teasing. Genuine grief. Grief of finally reaching the relief one's been chasing for all their life, only for it to be ripped away from them without their say. It shows itself in the way Dazai's smile cracks, the trained indifference seeping out of him at death's door. Chuuya wouldn't let him know he noticed. So he grits. I fucking hate you. Dazai bumps his ear against Chuuya's chest, eyelashes fluttering. He wheezes once before he utters. Liar. Shut the fuck up with your dogs would die without their masters bullshit. Chuuya finishes for him, not wanting to endure a second of Dazai trying any longer, though he's stupid to expect that that would have its intended effect. Chibi loves me too much, Dazai says after chuckling, which quickly turns into wheezing. Chuuya's brow arches, deciding not to feign a gag at the notion, feeling it isn't the appropriate time for it. He squeezes the other's cheeks instead, stealing all of his partner's focus, and frowns. Yeah? Well, how do you explain me keeping you from biting the dust? He asks quietly, as if sharing a secret. His partner's glazed eye widens just slightly. Chuuya smiles a little in satisfaction. Face it, you're never gonna stop suffering under my watch. He vows. The other is surprised for only a second before accepting his fate. Dazai's smile is the epitome of ruefulness, burrowing further in his chest as his eye closes. Chuuya mourns the loss of the lighted mahogany that had taken up his entire sense of sight, but he doesn't have the heart, nor the lack of pride, to disrupt its owner's rest. Slowly, he fixes Dazai's shirt, brushes his bangs a bit, wipes the blood that has sputtered from his lips, and presses onto his wounds a bit more. If he were to sound concussed, which he is, he'd have told you that Dazai was actively leaning into the touch. Shadows cast along, shielding them from the moon's light. Mori's medical team surrounds them, gasping at their horrendous states. Chuuya feels he'll pass out in a second, tension and adrenaline seeping out of him in tides. He makes sure to secure the last button on Dazai's shirt with shaky fingers beforehand, despite knowing it won't matter in the hands of the medics in white that they both equally loathe. But it's nice to get that out of his conscience. And it's nice to be assured one last time that the body beneath him is emitting everything but silence. A smile cracks and his vision spins as he bumps their foreheads together. Remind me to never call you mackerel again. Chuuya whispers and Dazai glows. Turning 21 might be the most anxiety-inducing and underwhelming feeling ever, oh my god. Guess what the inspiration of this fic was? I'll give you a hint. It's a scene from another wildly popular anime. Yup, Bakugo's death scene. Down to the pose and image of it too. Gosh, I miss My Hero Academia. It was peak. I'm a sucker for Chuuya using his ability on Dazai in any shape or form. I literally make up excuses just to include this premise in my fics. And I'm also a sucker for Chuuya admiring no longer human as much as Dazai admires corruption. These two are so freaking whipped. Oh, I can't stand them. By the way, this is the second LotusPear art featured in my thumbnail. I was looking for one with Dazai dead in it somehow, but then stumbled onto this in my old Tumblr reblogs and gasped. The pose, the vibe, the string of fate, the blood droplets coming out of Dazai's eyes. It's insane how perfect it is. Absolutely gorgeous. Thank you so much, Lotus, for giving me permission to use your art. This podfic wouldn't have been completed without you. And thank you so much for listening, everyone. Don't forget to check out the artist's link in the description. Also, if you'd like to request any fics, YouTube community tabs are now open for you to post, aside from Tumblr. And if you'd like to show more support or check out the monthly schedule, click the link through Ko-fi. Hope you have a great week. Till next time.